Come in, it's open. I was running late, so I didn't take the time to can you pass Nick?
Well, I'm going out of my car.
You want to? Yeah. Yeah, you guys can go put them in your car if you want right now.
I'll be late.
Okay. You didn't get a ticket yesterday, right?
Huh?
You did not get a ticket
No.
yesterday, right?
So does that mean I can put my car back up?
Yeah. If you want, I know, I'm sorry. I tried to let everyone know. Yeah, and I'm sorry, Philip, I forgot to send you the bus pass link. I am so sorry. We got them. Yeah, you're good.
Don't start without me.
Okay. Can do. How's your day been? Good. Oh, okay. Not controlled burns. Oi. Hi, Darren. Pardon? It's true. All right. For the GED.com account, it's usually your email, like personal email. That's like your username, and then you would have set up the password when you created the account. Yeah. Hi, Angel and Felicia. We are hopefully getting grooving here very shortly. Pardon? Yeah, I'm working on it. I know I'm being very slow today. Oh. One of those things where I kept trying to like do things and I'm like, oh crap, I gotta get across town. Me too. Yeah. I know, it's like it's nice that I can just walk to work most days. I appreciate that. Okay, why don't you like my password? Really slow. How can that not be correct? Okay, million times a charm. And you're not connected to the internet. Center B. Okay. Well, thank you guys for being here. Sorry that we're on a little bit of a slower start today. Okay. One more time. We're gonna play this game again. Okay. All right. Let me. All right. Angel, I sent a message to you in the Zoom chat if you didn't get on Canvas and sign in and stuff. So you can do either. All right. That's not what I wanted. But, come on, brain. What am I doing? Let's do that. Mhm. Okay. Okay. Why isn't it opening in? There we go. That's weird. Okay. All right. So, actually, sorry, I can't decide what to do with this. Okay. All right, hopefully everyone can see on the screen. So this is day 2 of Language Arts Week. And so yesterday we looked at language mechanics and kind of reviewed some of those, all of the kind of rules and stuff that you're expected to show that you know for the GED exam. And so the next highlight lesson that we're going to focus on tonight, you see on the screen, I also put it in the chat for you guys. So we'll do this lesson tonight, and then if you come back tomorrow, we will take the practice test for language arts for the GED. And this is just to give us another piece of data to kind of see what you know and what you need to learn. So our second highlight lesson, we're going to focus on fiction. Does anyone know what fiction is? Like a story or something, exactly. So fiction is any kind of writing or any other kind of art that yeah, thanks guys. Yeah, fabricated. Well, hang in there, Angel. Do what you want, what you think is gonna work. I don't know if you're on babysitting duty again, but we're here at Klein Library if you just want to come in person, but do your best as you always do. So yeah, so when we're talking about language arts, we usually have, and actually it'd probably be easier here. Let's just do this for a sec. Sorry, I'll start from the start. All right. Hopefully you guys on Zoom can still see the whiteboard here. So yeah, so oops, wrong keyboard. So when we talk about fiction, right, we're talking about oops, and you guys can't see that here, sorry. There we go, that's better. So we could say that tells, you know, a story. So there's a couple that we're going to look at, of course, a lot of different things. So for the language arts and Angel B, as opposed to Angel K, although it looks like Angel K disappeared. Angel B, you were right too. So another word that we could say if something's fiction, it's fabricated, it's made up. I mean, there is kind of, gray areas like with everything. So, some fiction might, well, some of it does draw on the real world. So it's not like completely made up. And that's if we went into like the realm of fantasy, right? Certain genres of fiction. And so, yeah, so because of that, fiction generally, right, we've got, stories, right? So that would be like novels or short stories. And probably those are the ones that we're gonna, we didn't get far, I promise. So, and then Nick, so the big packet is the lessons, and then the thing paper clipped underneath is just practice tests if you wanted to kind of review before tomorrow's progress test.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, these practice tests. So this will show you what will be on your progress test that you'll start tomorrow. So if you wanted to, but yeah, this is our lesson.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm trying, still haven't gotten the thing pulled up, but don't worry, I'll definitely make sure that you guys get your attendance. Okay, focusing. All right, so hopefully you guys feel good. So generally the fiction that we're gonna have to deal with for the GED is either gonna be excerpts from novels, like longer, books, or short stories. Poetry would also go into this category. Plays go into this category. I think sometimes there's poems and plays on the progress test that you guys take. But generally, no, I haven't seen it on the GED, which is good because that's kind of a different thing. The other important thing to notice, and hopefully you guys see this, is so when you think about fiction compared to other types of texts or passages, stuff that we have to read, fiction's purpose is more of like an entertainment kind of purpose, right? Or even we could say artistic, but it's easy to kind of contrast that from what we normally read in school, which is what we would call informational texts or informational passages. And so usually, I mean, you can learn from fiction and there are, stories that have a lesson to them, but usually we don't read a story to get information or learn about something, unless that's part of the story, right? So purpose is going to be one of the big, probably the biggest thing. Well, yeah, because from the purpose, I guess you get all the other pieces. So when we look at when we look at fiction, so if you think about like the elements of fiction, if you've ever read a novel or a short story, what are all the kind of pieces that you have to kind of analyze and think about to understand the story? So for example, right, we might talk about the plot. Does everyone feel good about the idea of a story's plot? Okay. We could talk about, right, the characters. We can talk about the setting. And then, so yeah, so there's a lot of kind of elements here. And so of course, plot, right, is what's happening. Most stories kind of follow a similar arc, right, in that you kind of have a building conflict to some kind of climax, right, and then it gets resolved in various ways. So, but we might also look at characters. So, I would definitely expect a question about characters. What do I mean by setting when I'm talking about element of fiction? Where it takes place, not only where, but also when. Good. And so the where and the when are kind of the pieces of setting, and I always try to area and time, yep. And so, good, yeah, so the when of the story is always helpful. What if I talk about a story's mood? Has anyone heard that idea before? Or tone?
Expression that this word gives out.
Yeah, good. Yeah, so the mood and the tone are kind of, yeah, kind of the emotional responses that the author, yeah, how the story expresses and makes us feel, exactly. And so, of course, the way that the author is going to set a mood or a tone, right, is by using specific words. And so, you know, try to get a sense of the mood or the tone. And so the other piece that we probably need to think about is genre. Does anyone know what genre is?
Like the different categories.
Like the different kinds, yeah. So what would be an example of a genre?
About music.
Music?
I know music.
Okay, what kind of genres of music exist?
All right, you got your rock.
Okay.
You got your jazz. You got
Mhm.
your like punk, I would say.
Okay.
You got your country.
Yeah, no, exactly.
You got your
Symphonic music.
the punk jazz.
Got reggae and funk and pop.
I love music.
That's great.
Like about genre, I like music.
Yeah, no, and it applies here too. So when we think about like fiction genres, we could think about westerns, horror. It's same as movie categories, right? Science fiction, fantasy, scary. I love historical fiction, is one of my favorites, which is when the where comes in. And we're gonna look at that a little bit in social. Yeah, it's the sort of personality. I like that. I like that version of Angel. Yeah. So good. So when you know that you're encountering a fiction passage, you know, definitely know that, right, the way we have to analyze it, and it has different pieces that they're going to ask us about. And so just kind of be ready for that. But let's look at our lesson. So our lesson starts with some strategies about test taking, and this applies to probably not just the fiction passages, but it's definitely helpful because sometimes, especially the fiction passages, can be kind of long. And I would say I kind of use this technique first, but hopefully everyone feels good about the idea of, especially when we have this timed reading task. So we have X amount of time to read X amount of stuff and answer X amount of questions. Our goal is to hopefully answer all the questions correctly. So having enough time to read closely and get everything in might not be a possibility. And so for me, when I'm taking a reading test, I'm going to look at the questions first. I might just kind of scan through the passage just to kind of see, or look at the title just to kind of know. But I really want to focus on the questions because, once again, right, what counts is me answering those right. And so going to the questions first is helpful. Okay. Hello. I will probably just fill your guys' attendance out later so that I'm not wasting more time. So let's see. So how does the author feel about the topic? Yeah. So always looking at the questions first. When I'm looking at the questions, I'm also trying to kind of eliminate anything that doesn't seem logical, especially if it's not answering the question in a way that I think is good. But we're gonna read the questions, hopefully find some keywords that are gonna help us, right, know where in the passage to find the, Jose, did you need a pass, a parking before I forget? Hopefully you didn't get a ticket yesterday. So then scan, okay, scan and then read. So once again, you can kind of do that survey or get a preview of the whole text, but the questions are really gonna, right, help you kind of pinpoint, right, what section you need to specifically read. Okay. Next piece of advice is about using context clues. Has anyone heard this idea of context clues?
This morning, actually.
Oh, good.
A little bit. I didn't pick up much on it, but we have talked about it more.
Yeah, and I actually, Daniel was kind of doing a good thing. So context is pretty much what we know, even though it's not being explicitly said, right? So if I was like, oh, I'm a little chilly, maybe I'm trying to say the room feels cold, right? I'm not saying that directly. And so sometimes if you read something that's unfamiliar, hopefully some of the context around that unknown chunk is going to help you kind of figure out what you need to figure out. And definitely I would say they like to use questions that'll have you find like one word, and then once again, like what tone does this word set, what, or what words give it a gloomy tone or something like that, so definitely important. So as you kind of scan through the passage, right, we're looking for keywords, we're looking for names, right? And I'm not sure why it says names of real people and names of characters, but for fiction, right, we just want to figure out, right, basically kind of the big questions, right? The who, the what, the when, the where,
The how.
maybe a how did they get to what, maybe, or a why. So, and definitely it's nice because of course character names, generally locations, stuff like that are capitalized, like we talked about yesterday. So as you scan through the text, hopefully those will kind of pop out a little bit more brightly. So once again, here you get this idea of clues about the mood or tone. Okay. One thing that we did, actually, these last two things we didn't touch on, I didn't have in my list. But if it talks about looking for hints about the theme, what is theme when we talk about a story? Kind of. It's kind of like the message of the story, or like kind of like genre, but more, yeah, like is the theme about being a hero? Is the theme about dealing with death? So those kind of big topics that you could say, oh, the theme of this book is about family, so it's those big ideas that relate to kind of why did this person feel motivated to write this story and talk about these people. And so that would be the theme. And so sometimes it's pretty obvious, other times, I don't know, those questions on the GED sometimes are really hard for me, at least, because once again, theme is very subjective, what we would say, in a way, right? We can really interpret stuff as long as we have good rationale for it. So sometimes it's hard to figure out what the test question writer wanted you to know the theme was, but hopefully we'll not worry about that. Another really important piece of fiction especially is this last part that's called point of view. Does anyone know, like, if we talked about a story having a first person point of view?
First, second, and third, early second, it's there just if it happens to come across, but majority of the first.
Yeah, I've only ever read one second person story.
I've never seen that. Third person is gonna be like me or I. Third person will be like us or he. He said this.
Right.
She said this. It's not really me. I said this.
Right. So if the story is told with a first person point of view, that means one of the characters is telling us what's happening and we see the story unfold from the person's point of view.
Yeah.
Whereas if we have a third person point of view, you could kind of think about that as like the God view, right? So it's kind of like the author's kind of overseeing the story and watching all the moving pieces. So if you've ever read any of the like Game of Thrones books, I liked it because each chapter is a different first person point of view. So each chapter is a different character telling part of the story together.
Fun to read.
It's okay. It's not for everyone.
Okay. I read when I have to, but like if I don't have to read,
I completely empathize with that. Yeah. And I mean, if I had the time and energy to read, I would totally read, but I haven't really given myself that much time or space because I've been reading the Outlander series for like 3 years, and I think I'm still only like halfway through the third book. So yeah. They are long books.
I give those books to my brother. It's gone in 2 weeks.
I know. I was always like,
My brother's a bookworm.
we always have those classmates who like read the novel like right away, and I'm like, how
They're
did it like?
the same day.
Yeah, you
You're
know,
like,
I haven't done that in a long time.
my brother's a bookworm. He'll sit there
Just wish he could
all
bottle that.
day. I'm like, you're gonna go blind. Like I know I'm blind, but
Is he reading like
Yeah.
manga or
no,
just regular novels?
he novels and fictions and like all like the Game of Thrones and like just like all those like
Fantasy,
big
sci-fi,
chapters.
yeah.
Some of the books he has, I'm like how?
Yeah,
And the book like this thick is gone in one day. I'm like, there's no way.
that's amazing. That's really cool.
That's why I hate reading.
Fair enough. Yeah. Definitely have books that didn't finish. I was pretty voracious with some books. Hunger Games I was so mad when the first book ended. I was just like, we gotta go get the sixth book. Yeah. The first book is really, it just like stops and you're like, that's stupid.
It's like those movies that have no ending, right? They just kind of cut off. You're like, well, where's this? You ever seen those movies before?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of like 70s movies like that with very ambiguous endings. Or like back in the day, it was like the Hollywood studio system didn't want to show like criminals succeeding. So if you've ever seen like the original Italian Job, yeah, where they're like balancing on the cliff. Yeah, and you don't know. Actually, I guess Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels kind of ends that way too. Was he just had thrown the rifles into the river? Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, those kind of ambiguous or just like really like abrupt endings that you're just kind of like, I guess that's supposed to be cool and artistic. I don't know. But cool. So definitely helpful to think about these things. And of course, if they signal, right, with certain types of things, then that makes our lives easier. Let's see, as you read, come across information set in brackets. So this kind of goes back to context clues. Sometimes authors really do give you lots of good nuggets. And so once again, if we think about the way we talked about punctuation last night, you know, as we're reading, we're signaling different things to the reader. So hopefully those catch your eyes as you kind of scan through the passage and it catches your eye. So you kind of slow down and say, okay, there's something kind of important-ish looking here. Okay, like lists, like long comma lists or something like that. Classify the information. This is always helpful once again as you're kind of scanning through the text and really just getting a sense of you know, are they comparing and contrasting things? Is this like a sequence of events that are happening kind of one after another? We might see cause and effect. So that's how we would classify the information. And then of course, visuals, although I don't think on any of the fiction passages we get any visuals, at least the ones I've seen. Definitely look for the title. Sometimes it's on top, but sometimes if they've just taken a chunk out of a story, they might just put it like at the very bottom.
Excuse me. What lesson are we on?
No worries. We are on, who is this? Oh, sorry, Casey, you were right. I totally forgot to turn the screen back on. I'm so sorry. So today's lesson that I put in the chat, I'm so sorry. We're on page 4 right now. And let me share the screen. I'm so sorry. Thank you. This is what happens. Sorry about that. This one. Oh, this one. All right. Hopefully that's better. Sorry about that. So we're going to read the questions carefully, and definitely don't want to read it too quickly. Yeah, no worries. Appreciate it. Sorry I didn't see the chat message. Like I said, I'm spoiled in the other classroom because I have 2 screens, so it's easier to have more to look at. But definitely read the questions carefully, because definitely words like least, most, greatest, any of those kind of keywords are going to be really crucial, right, to meeting our goal of finding the right answer. Oh, okay. So sometimes in all of the reading type questions, if they're referring to a specific line or a specific paragraph, definitely helpful. And that questions, right, sends us exactly where we need to look in the text. Sometimes you might not have that, but always nice. So if it's something like line this, sentence this, paragraph this, it should be there. Oh, it was buffet. It was not buffet. You're probably familiar with the word buffet.
Yes.
And could easily give a definition. I do not use the word buffet. Okay.
I didn't know that. Like old proper English.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't think I would need to
You
do
don't
that.
really get very many people nowadays that speak proper English.
Well, there's some people that would argue that there's no such thing as proper English. So,
That's fair.
if you were going to say proper English, then you have to say who's English. The British is English. The Americans English. Australian English. Singapore English. South African English. All right, so fiction passages involve imaginary people and events. So there might be kind of an argumentative or persuasive element to it, but remember that it's going to have that mostly entertaining focus. And then we talked about tone, style. I think I was kind of calling mood, or, once again, it's just kind of the way that the writer chooses to write. If you ever read like Ernest Hemingway, his style is really annoying because he writes big, long dialogues between people, but he doesn't say who's saying what. So you have to like go back and figure out who started the conversation and who's saying what at what part of the, yeah, just don't read Hemingway. It's fine. He'll be fine. He's dead. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, I feel bad because he totally suicided himself now thinking about it. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, just don't read Hemingway. It's fine. Much better authors. So make inferences. So this is always about, once again, trying to do that filling in the blank. What are they saying indirectly? Okay, and that's a lot of interpreting fiction. So we can infer what kind of character someone is. We could infer, like what their motivation is behind doing something. So there's lots of possibilities. Okay. So, for example, here, right, as Maxwell stepped outside, he noticed the sounds of cows mooing in the distance. Make out the silhouette of the barn on the opposite side of the field. This was nothing like the city he was used to. So what's the setting of the story? A farm. Good. Yeah. I guess barn would kind of be a distractor, but hopefully if you saw the choices between farm and barn, hopefully that would feel good. True. He can only see it on the opposite side of the field. So exactly. So barn is not,
Not good.
I mean, you could almost argue that zoo might be, if it's like a petting zoo. Mm,
What's that movie? We Bought a Zoo, right?
mhm.
That's a good.
With Matt Damon, yeah. Yeah, that is, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I used to teach that. All right. So notice names, pay attention to details. Okay. And so once again, one of the biggest things that you might see is these questions about purpose. And one of the things to remember about purpose is usually we're going to talk about something's purpose by saying its purpose is to blank. So our three big categories are entertain, inform, or persuade. But within those three big categories, right, you might have more specific things like if you're going to persuade, are you actually arguing? Are you convincing? Are you justifying, right? Giving reasons for something. If you're informing, you might be explaining, you might be describing, you might be, yeah, just straight up telling. And then, of course, entertainment, purpose, maybe to amuse people, to stir people emotionally, to scare people, right? Some people find that entertaining. I fall into these huge rabbit holes of like watching YouTube videos about amusement park rides and how they're like designed and if they were like really bad or good. I don't like riding roller coasters, but I really like those videos. There's some pretty good ones. And then you're just like, wow, these people.
You just gotta hop on it, close your eyes. First time around, it's not that bad. Second time I drive up and you're like, oh.
No, I just, yeah, going fast.
There was this one ride. I was in Cali for it.
Mm-hmm. I think I did, Sabrina. It should be that second link under tonight's lesson, but I'll resend it to you. What was that? I'm sorry.
So I was in this station park in Cali, and there was this coaster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how high up it was, but it was high, and not only when you got to the top, you were upside down for like 5 seconds.
Whoa.
And then
because it had like the
around.
Oh,
so it was like this, and it stopped, and then it went back this, like it turned it the other way, and then it went down. Yeah. No, I love roller coasters.
Yeah.
I remember it was like a giant blue one.
I'm sure there's video. Doesn't sound like any ones good. So hopefully you guys get this in entertainment purpose, right? This summer while vacationing in Florida, I went parasailing with my mom. It was the most thrilling adventure I'd ever had. We floated from a giant parachute hundreds of feet above the water and soared over the beaches. So you're really trying to, right, paint that picture with words, show but not tell, right? Yep. What is the point of view of this passage? First person, second person, or third person? Good. Yep, exactly. And we and our, you'll also see in first person, it's not necessarily third person. There probably just would never be a story that would be in what we call first person plural point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we contrast that, right, here would be, right, the more informative version of the text, right? So we're still on the same topic, but because the purpose has changed, right, we're providing different information. So parasailing does look like fun. So a rider is attached to a large parachute or parasail. The parasail is attached to a vehicle, usually a boat, by a long tow rope. As the boat moves, the parasail and rider rise up into the air. Okay, so that would be an informational purpose. And then, of course, a persuasive purpose, right, means that we're telling, but we have that kind of idea of I'm saying something kind of opinion based, right, that I want to convince and persuade others. This is page 10. Philip. So yeah, right. One of the most dangerous sports today is parasailing. Each year, many people are seriously injured or even killed while participating in this activity. Laws should be passed that prohibit such reckless entertainment. If people want to fly, they should get on an airplane.
If you can be smart ass.
Yeah, gets a little snarky there at the end for sure. But you know, when we see language like the most dangerous, right? Something should be done, right? That is always persuasive purpose. Okay. And so once again, sometimes the three main purposes can get mixed. And so then you kind of decide what's the main purpose. So sometimes you can have a persuasive passage that's very informational, right? Or you could have like a long informational passage that maybe ends with like a quick opinion, right? So you wouldn't say everything is persuasive, but on the majority of it is informational purpose wise. So hopefully those contrasts make sense. And so yeah, right. We get very strong wording in more persuasive text because once again, we're trying to kind of evoke call to action to our readers. All right, so if we look at this paragraph, it was a quiet summer evening. The moon was full and the dark sky seemed to hold a million stars. Outside, only the sound of crickets could be heard. So what would be the purpose of this passage? Entertainment, good. And so once again, yeah, I think you guys are getting the gist of this, but if we're kind of painting the picture with words, then we're in that entertainment fiction kind of area. If it's just the facts, ma'am, right? Information. Okay. So it looks like there is some informational passages here, but let's focus on fiction. All right. We talked about point of view, so hopefully everyone feels good about that. And so, as we mentioned, the majority is going to be first or third person. Second person is really hard to tell a story from a second person point of view. So you can always kind of think about it like if you like game, you know, if you want to have the like first person perspective or like
I can't do third person.
yeah. Yeah. Trying to think. I guess I was playing third person because I was playing Baldur's Gate.
Oh, okay.
All right. So if we just so I think everyone's feeling good about point of view. So here's some more information about theme. So like I was saying, and I like this definition here, right? The theme of a story is its underlying message. Okay. So in a fable, the moral of the story is the theme, right? The lesson that was learned. In fiction, overall message is usually implied. So once again, it's going to be one of those things that we have to kind of pull out. It's not going to be like, this story is about Sam. Its theme is blah, blah, blah. Okay. But kind of four good big categories of themes: attitudes, beliefs, opinions, or perceptions, right? So the theme kind of leaves you with that takeaway from the story. Okay. Relating to life, society, or human nature. So always kind of looking at that. And then once again, how do we figure out the theme? Well, we look at the way the author puts the words together and puts all the pieces together. So I guess, right, if we think about the story of the Three Little Pigs, one could say that the theme of the story is that it is best to do a job the right way the first time. Okay, good. I like that one too. Sorry, I was just thinking about green jelly. Not the fur. All right, so let's see. if we are reading a novel about a poor woman's journey from Korea to the United States in the 1940s, it may describe the details of the character's childhood on a farm in Korea, the boat trip she took as a young adult to San Francisco, the elderly man who swindled her out of her life savings because she didn't speak English, the difficulties she had finding a job, and the satisfaction she ultimately felt as she worked hard to make a living. Okay? These are the facts of the plot, right? But the theme is different. So remember that the theme is not really like the what of the story, it's maybe the why of the story we could kind of think of. So a message or a lesson, it could kind of leave you with like a question to ponder. It could be a specific idea about life or people, right? Desperation brings out the worst in people and the very best. Or it could be maybe more of a general concept. And I think that's what I was first saying, right? Like something about youth and aging, beauty standards, cultural differences. So it's the message of the story. And so once again, just like with a lot of things, there might be kind of multiple themes, although usually we're going to have probably a small enough chunk that shouldn't have to deal with multiple themes. Okay. So as far as finding the theme or finding these things, repetition is definitely a good way that the author kind of signals the theme. So if you feel like something is kind of getting repeated, think about that. Connections in stories. So, for example, the first chapter of a book takes place in a house by a river, which is flooding after a bad storm. The climax, right, which is usually that kind of peak of the action, okay, that final boss battle, right, takes place on a train that's traveling through the dusty plains of Texas. The end of the book takes place on a street in New York City where children have uncapped a fire hydrant and are playing in the water. While a river, a plane, and a fire hydrant are very different things, there is a running pattern through the book. Water, either too much or too little. Okay, so try and kind of find those patterns, repetitions, and then kind of look at the timing. So timing, whenever the main character, a firefighter, puts on his firefighting uniform in the morning, a mouse peeks its head out of a hole in the wall. Is this pattern a reminder that we all have to battle our weaknesses? Or even when someone acts bravely, is he or she still vulnerable? Okay. And so patterns are usually connected to the theme and can help us understand it. Okay. And then, of course, omission would be another thing. So it's like, once again, what is being said without being said? Or is there something missing that sticks out? So can I think of an example? Probably not without spoiling any stories. Because usually if like something's, it's kind of like thinking like the end of like The Sixth Sense or something, right? Where at least Bruce Willis finally realizes his status. And so it's not like it was ever overtly said, it was almost kind of blatantly missing until that kind of final part of the story. So, okay. Pardon? That's true. I have not either. All right, let's move to, oops, sorry. I'm jumping to page 22. So once again, oh, okay, those are just the themes of the story. Okay, so this is page 23. So, all right, let's look for the theme in this passage. Hi, Manuel. Glad you could join us. Maybe. Sorry, I'm blocking the screen. All right. Camilla usually looked forward to Friday nights, but this week was the definite exception. Instead of going to the movies with her friends, she would be stuck at home helping mom get ready for tomorrow's garage sale. As she walked into the house, Camilla could see that mom was already prepared for the long night ahead of them. Hey, get that scowl off your face and throw on your overalls, mom called out cheerfully. It won't be that bad. Camilla changed clothes and headed to the garage, dragging her feet the whole way. Mom was elbow deep in an old cardboard box. She pulled out a raggedy old stuffed dog. Mr. Floppy, Camilla cried, excited to see her old friend. I haven't seen him in years. Your very first soft friend, Mom reminisced. I'm assuming you'll be keeping him? Or would you like a 25-cent price tag to stick on his ear? Camilla set the old dog aside. She would definitely keep him. She helped Mom empty the rest of the box, sticking price tags on other old toys and books. They continued through the boxes, stopping to look through old photo albums together, telling funny stories about some of the useless gifts they collected, laughing at the hand-me-down clothes that had arrived at their house over the years, and modeling the silliest of them. After a few hours, Mom looked at her watch. Wow, it's nearly 8 already. Should we order pizza? Camilla couldn't believe how late it was. She looked at her mom, who was wearing dusty overalls, 5 strands of Aunt Edna's old beads, and a granny's wide brim Sunday bonnet, and it couldn't help but laugh out loud. This was the best Friday night she could remember. Okay. So Angel says D is the theme. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Even though it says it right there at the bottom. Oh, memories are a special part of our life. It's important to get rid of old items. Families should spend weekends together. Some things turn out to be better than expected. Yeah. Why? I think it'll tell us. I know. It's okay, Angel. If you didn't see it, then you're good. But yeah, so it looks like D is our answer. And so, yeah, right? It's like, where did she start? Where did she end up? And so. So no worries. What was that? I know. It's always funny because yeah, sometimes when they have these little interruption practices and I'm like, oh yeah. I don't think we need to worry too much about synthesis. Synthesis is really about taking ideas from different texts and kind of putting them together. So you will have to do that with informational text, but I've never seen any like synthesis questions with fiction. So generally you're either going to have 2 passages or a passage and some kind of visual, like a chart or a table or a graph. Maybe a picture. So I guess what they're saying here is, and we might have to do this, right, is that synthesis is usually multiple sources, but you could also synthesize information from different parts. And so let's see what it has us do here. Roger quietly walked to the shelf. He pulled his ball cap down on his head as he quickly looked at the items neatly lined up in front of him. Then he grabbed a package of crackers, shoving it into his backpack as he hurried to the door, trying not to make any sound. Good. Yep, his backpack. It's like we're looking down on Roger, right? We're not seeing the story through Roger's eyes. So yeah. So what do we think is happening with Roger in this store. I'm sorry, I still can't hear you. Maybe, yeah. I mean, it definitely seems like if he grabbed the crackers and shoved them into his backpack and tried to hurry to the door quietly, then yeah, I think he's definitely seems to be shoplifting in this moment. Roger's mom heard him opening the front door. She put the sleeping baby in her cradle, then hurried to see her son. Honey, did you find something in the pantry for a snack to take for a snack? Yeah, Mom, Roger replied. I found the peanut butter crackers and grabbed the package. Those are my favorite. Thanks for getting them. Do you want me to drive you to baseball practice so you're not late? Mom asked. No, I don't want you to wake Amy. I know she hasn't been sleeping much lately. You're a good big brother and a great son. Be careful. Oh, okay. All right. Sorry about that, Manuel. Try that one that I put in the Zoom chat. Because our Canvas is a little different right now. Pardon? Okay. Probably live too much in my headphones. It's not good for my hearing.
I live in my headphones 8+ hours a day. Especially when I'm at work, I have both of it. Probably not all the way.
Yeah. I know sometimes I feel silly, but yeah, if I want to watch something on my own, yeah. Dishes, chores, it's great. Walking. So anyway, Manuel, if you go to Canvas for next time, instead of going to our old class, which is down here, right, for spring, you're just going to click on the beach, and that will take you to our summer classes, and then you would fill out this one for the evening class. Okay. But I did put it in the Zoom chat for you too, so you should be able to sign in. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I definitely made the wrong assumption there. I guess it's only because it was a shelf and we didn't know.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I made the wrong assumption. So yeah, definitely the new information changed my mind. So when we put the information together, hopefully you guys are seeing, right? Why is the new information relevant?
Explain more.
Yeah, it kind of clarifies the first chunk. And so, yeah, so, you know, you might have to look for some pieces up here and some pieces down here and kind of connect the dots or verify. And that's why you still have to kind of look through the whole thing. Not gonna, let's see. All right, let's look at this practice question at the bottom of page 28. Okay, the winter had been especially cold. A thick, snowy blanket had covered the landscape for what seemed like months. Each day, the stack of firewood beside the house grew visibly smaller and smaller. This concerned Ella terribly. She continued to hope that the snow would be gone before this firewood. Ella turned away from the window and returned to her writing. Somehow, writing about summer made the house feel warmer, feeling the sun's bright rays on her face, walking barefoot in the green grass, fishing with her family, swimming in the refreshing water. These were things Ella dreamed and wrote of during the long winter months. Okay. So if we look at the question, which of course is on 2. No. Hopefully you guys can still see that. Okay, so hopefully you can answer this question. The author of the passage lived during the 19th century in the Midwestern United States. What years are the 19th century? 1800s. Good. Yeah. Always remember that, right? A century is always a year, like one before that. Good. So think about 1800s. Okay. So once again, we think about the context, we think about the when and the where, what's happening, and then Midwest. Based on the information in the story, as well as knowing the information about the author, which of the following best explains Ella's concern over the firewood? B?
Right. Oh, there's four questions. Never mind, take that back.
There's four choices.
I didn't see the second paper.
Oh yeah. We got A, B, C, or D.
B, C.
I can't send that to you right now, Sabrina. But I did put the links in the chat. So did you get the link in the Zoom chat for the materials and the sign-in sheet? I can't look it up right now. C?
Well,
B or D?
If you go think about the passage I just went through, out on the firewood and it was cold, and she was dreaming and writing about this, it would make more sense.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I would say this one is kind of interesting. I mean, A is true, but I don't think that has to do with her concern about having enough, right, to get through the winter. B, hopefully everyone agrees B is silly. Yes? Good.
No, I think that's
They didn't have trees back then, you know?
No, we didn't.
Oh, yeah. They had to dig their houses in the side of hills and burn
Okay,
buffalo
C.
dung. Okay, so then C, winters in the Midwestern United States are extremely cold. But I would definitely say D makes the most sense for me why she's worried, right? Because there's a limited amount of firewood, but so why are you feeling C, Nick?
Well, because it really mentioned anything about like cooking. Now, firewood for heat, I get that, but it didn't like really say she was cooking anything or like worrying about how she's gonna eat, you know. And it was talking to like just snow and she
Okay.
was, like dreaming and writing about this, which is why I would say the Midwestern are cold.
Yeah, and I mean it says the winter has been especially cold, so maybe this winter in particular is a little more extreme.
Or they just try to drink so you can mess up.
Sometimes it feels like that. But I would definitely say, right, that she continued to hope that the snow would be gone before the firewood. And so, yeah, I mean, I could kind of see C, but D makes more sense, right? Because she's dependent on that firewood, right? And I assume if she ran out before the winter ended, it would be not very pleasant to have to go get more, but does it tell us here?
But it's like she couldn't go get more.
Hard to say. I mean, we don't have enough context to really know. Like, once again, is Ella alone in this house? Is she the only person who's like tending to the house? I mean, we don't have any of that information to kind of figure out, but we definitely know because of the when of the story that firewood is much more of a necessity for those people. But so let's see what it says here. Keep in mind that to correctly answer this question, you need to combine the information in the passage with the new information given in the question. So that's the synthesis between the question and the passage, which definitely is possible. So, for example, it is true that many 19th century homes had fireplaces and that winters in parts of the United States can be very cold. I mean, it's kind of funny because you don't think of the Midwest as cold, but it's pretty cold.
It's like the desert. The desert's hot, but it does get cold.
Yeah. Yeah. So, however, these facts do not consider the pieces of information that you need to synthesize. From the reading passage, you know that Ella needs firewood. And then after learning the time period in which she lived, you're able to see how important firewood was for her survival. During the 19th century, at least most of the 19th century, I'm trying to think, I feel like toward the end of the 19th century, there would have been. It's usually like turn of the, between the 18s and the 19s, electricity became a thing. So people had to have firewood to warm their homes and cook their meals. And especially like, once again, if you think about the US, the Midwest, it's not like there's a lot of coal like there is in like England or something like that, I guess. Choice D best synthesizes the information from both sources. Okay, so let's try another one. All right. This is bottom of page 31. As the real estate agent walked up to the home, she admired her own photo on the for sale sign in the front yard. I don't know about that. She was anxious to get this home sold. Once inside with the homeowner, she explained the next step in selling their house. Your beautiful home has been on the market for several weeks now without any offers. We need to consider our options. The carpet is definitely a little bit worn in one bedroom. The bathroom wallpaper is a bit out of date, and the front yard could use some new flowers. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's not really a thing anymore. That's a good point. It's almost like more like wall decals have kind of replaced it. That's true. I always remember those like sample books back in the day. These issues could be deterring potential buyers. I think it's time we lower the price of your home by at least 15% if you want to get it sold. So think about that. And then we have the second chunk of information. The real estate agent will qualify for a large bonus if she sells one more house within the next month. Which of the following best describes the agent's motives in the passage? Got a guess?
B, her profit depends on
B.
selling the house for the highest possible price.
So that's why she's suggesting that they lower it by 15%.
Yeah.
C.
C.
I mean, I was thinking A was what was standing out to me.
I was
Because
saying A, but then what's special means I would B.
well, we have to combine the information here. And so we know that this bonus is on the line. And I guess I'm mostly combining it with the beginning,
Yeah.
you know, to where she's admiring her own photo and she was anxious, right, to get it sold. So I think those pieces I was kind of synthesizing here
That makes sense.
more so than C. I mean, of course you're going to tell the buyers, right, that this is the best for you, but we don't get that we don't get any information to kind of support that in the second chunk of information. So yeah. D, I definitely didn't like. Choices B and C may be true, but they do not take in consideration the additional information. So always, and I would say that's one of the hardest parts, right, is figuring out what chunks of information to put together. And so once again, the more closely you read the question and make it clear, right, like I'm going to give you one more sentence of information, and then based on that and what you already know, right, put them together. And so they definitely like these answers where it's either one or the other. And then there's usually one answer that's like both combined.
That could have been right. So,
yeah, and it could be true. We just don't have the information.
Right.
And so once again, we don't want to assume too far out. We don't want to get too far away from the information we're provided with. And so if it feels like, yes, it's possible, but I don't have the evidence to really feel like I could say this information tells me this for sure, is probably what I would say. And so when added to the information in the passage that states that she wants to lower the price of the house, we can figure out that her motivation for dropping the price is to sell the house quickly so that she can get the bonus. Yeah, yeah. And so I think it was, once again, and maybe it just stuck in my mind, the beginning part where she's like, it made me think of the movie American Beauty, actually. Where she's like, she has to do the open house. Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. So then I was like, oh yeah, she just wants.
I guess relying on movies help you too.
Yes, watch movies. That's what we should tell everyone.
We were like in a language arts class back when we were at Coco, or it was like either science or language arts.
Mm-hmm.
And there was something in there's two angels, but one angel got the answer just going off of a movie. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it happens. It's the best of us. Yeah, and I mean, the more, once again, right, the more connections we can make. And so, don't think that you don't know, because I mean, once again, hopefully if you think of like, oh, the 1800s, what was life like back then? Yes, you'd probably be more worried about firewood and. Oh, okay. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, not my bag. I'm not wearing a corset. Yeah, women's clothes, way too complicated, too many layers. So comparing and contrasting, hopefully everyone feels pretty good about this, but once again, we kind of look for ideas and connections in fiction passages. You might see where they focus on similarities or focus on differences. So if we use the terms compare and contrast together, once again, usually compare focuses on similarities, contrast focuses on differences, but sometimes you use compare for both. But definitely something they like to have you guys do. And so, you might have to contrast two characters or, something like that, their actions. So the nice thing about compare and contrast is there's usually words that signal, right, when this is going to happen. Maybe not so much in fiction, but definitely in your informational passages, in your persuasive passages. And so the more familiar you get with these signal words and the kind of ideas that they're signaling, hopefully it'll help you kind of be able to manage and organize the information a little bit better. All right. Let's see. All right. Sorry. Let's see what we got here. Okay. So let's look at this excerpt from a speech. So this is another type of passage that you're going to encounter. Probably, maybe there might be one on the language arts test, but this is a little closer to what you might see in social studies. And this is what we call primary sources. Does anyone know that idea? So a primary source is, right, basically something written in the past, right? And so we've somehow recorded that person's words. And so when we learn history from the people who were, like doing the stuff, like giving speeches, writing newspaper, that's the primary source. But if we think about like a history textbook, that's what we call like a secondary source, which tells us about what happened. But anything that was actually happening in the moment, we call that primary source. And so of course, historians need to learn history from the primary sources so they can give us the secondary information. All right, so this is the words of John F. Kennedy when he was sworn in as president in 1961.
The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. And so there's, right, these certain words and phrases that kind of build on each other. So we have this idea of mortal hands. When someone uses the word mortal, does anyone know what mortal means? If you're immortal, what does that mean? You can't die. So if you're mortal, you can die, right? And so what's the difference about talking about hands versus mortal hands? Trying to kind of add that temporal, kind of humanity. They're just our weak kind of people. So glad I learned this last time. So yeah, it just kind of adds those so yeah, anything that's mortal, it has, right, a certain lifespan. And so for man holds in his mortal hands the power. So, I think what he's saying, right, is that it might not have been true, in the past, but now, right, in kind of the current state, you can do that. You get words like revolutionary beliefs, forebears. Does anyone know what a forebears? Oh, forebears. For which our forebears fought. Shouldn't it be forebears? Yeah, ancestors, good. And then once again, you kind of, if it gets to these nice repetitive 2, 2, 2, once again, it's very artistic. The structure and word choice of the passage affect its tone and meaning and support Kennedy's purpose to inspire his audience. Inspiration is one of those persuasive purposes, right? To those old allies whose cultural and spiritual origins we share, to those new states whom we welcome to the ranks of the free, to those people in the huts and villages across the globe struggling to break the bonds of mass misery, to our sister republics south of our border, to that world assembly of sovereign states, finally to those nations who would make themselves our adversary. There's a lot in there, but like it's saying down here, this is a great use of repetition, and another important structure that we didn't talk about yesterday, but it's this idea of parallel structure. It just talks about phrasing things in kind of that similar way. And once again, it helps the ideas kind of flow, and you can hopefully hold them in your mind a little bit more easily. If they're not in that same structure of language, to those, if it's not like that, then it can get really confusing. So if we think about this, and of course, does anyone know what these ... is here? What that signals? It's called an ellipsis. Oh, nice. Yeah. And so ellipsis is just showing us that, right, they cut off the end of all of these phrases, right? So there's more speech after this line, but once again, the purpose here is to show this repetition and this parallel structure. And so if you're only cutting chunks out of a sentence, then you want to just have 3 dots, right? But if it's at the end, then 4, because the fourth period is the period ending the sentence. All right, let's see if we can look at this last one. Oh, it's long. Good. Well, I mean, once again, if you kind of look at okay, this is a long text. So once again, you could look sorry, I keep switching around. And at least look at the top here, the magnolia tree from the memoir Cross Creek, 1942, by Marjorie Kinnan Rawlings. Does anyone know what a memoir is?
Like memory?
Good. Yeah, it's kind of like an autobiography, but it's kind of like someone telling their own story. So it's usually not purely like informational. It is more of like fictional. But yeah, so a lot of people personally write their memoirs. Some people have people help them write memoirs if they get too old. And so once again, we're in the 1940s, so kind of think about that. But we know that it's focusing on the magnolia tree. And so we know it's kind of focused on a tree, but yes, question? What I would do, right, is just immediately jump down here.
Orchids. Guaranteed orchids.
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 So you'd want to go back and write, kind of scan for those words. It develops with complete symmetry. Waiting for it. Okay. The tree is beautiful year round. Just before it blooms, there's a dry pattern of earth. Orchids. Yeah, here you go. I would not trade one tree for a conservatory filled up with orchids.
There's those orchids.
Yep. Yeah. Since we see orchids twice, perfect. And so you just look for that word, and even though Christmas tree's right here, how do we know it's not Christmas tree?
That says Christmas at the end of the sentence.
Yeah, it doesn't really talk about it before. And I think the Christmas tree is more about the Christmas tree lights, right? And how the flowers of the magnolia trees are very beautiful. We've never had a chance to see one, but they're in the southeast, so you have to go somewhere humid.
I like human places.
Oh, yeah, Angel, whatever you need to do, it looks like you're ready to go. Yeah. All right, let's look at the next one. So once again, the passage describes the yearly cycle of a magnolia tree. So of course the passage will probably help us figure this out, but even like if you just look at the answer choices, like if we can figure out what sentence goes first, then we'll have our answer, right? Do you guys see what I'm saying?
So you want to go, then you want to go 2 first. And then you want to go.
So, and yeah, so if you, yeah, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1.
Yeah, I think no, hold on. Well, 2, 2 goes first. 4.
Does it start by falling off?
Yeah, 4, 2,
1, 3.
1.
So D.
It's a D. Well, because the leaves fall, let's start new, right? Because it doesn't say like she's
Yeah.
growing, so we start new, leaves are gonna fall. New ones are gonna come in, you know, and then it's gonna get flower buds, so those buds are gonna bloom, and they can all do that in.
Yeah. So, you know, once again, when they give you like basically most of the information, right, is there in the question, then yeah, hopefully, so yeah, I'm feeling D as well. Does anyone like any other answers? Yeah. It is kind of funny how they threw it off like that. Because once again, I'm very used to when they have those multiple choice answers that are like columns. Like if you have to organize something, once again, just look at that first column and if you kind of narrow it from there, that's how I would kind of work through these problems.
So I just figure out to start it backwards, like look over the leaves of the tree fall.
Yeah, that's definitely tricky. Okay. Well, here we are, guys, at the end of this lesson. So hopefully you got a good sense of how to hopefully kind of reason through this stuff. Anyone on Zoom have any final questions or concerns? So if you guys come in person tomorrow, do all of you guys have student IDs? Okay. Coconino student ID? Okay, make sure you bring your student IDs and we'll check out laptops from the, from downstairs. I think it'll be better than using to do the practice test, okay? So, all right. For you folks on Zoom, we're gonna do the practice test tomorrow. So hopefully you guys have computers that you can do that on. If not, let me know, we can figure it out, but otherwise you are good to go. All right, I will see you tomorrow at 11:30.
Yeah, so that 11:30, this is for that 11:30.
Yeah, like I said, if you don't have to do it, but if you wanted to kind of preview and see what's gonna be on the test then.
So this is based on.
Yeah. It basically is gonna show you everything and ask the questions in the same way. So,
This is like all the upper class that they're taking, right?
no, so the progress test looks like the placement test you took during orientation.
Okay.
So it'll be reading, language, and math, and then hopefully, once again, right, you do better. And we'll see your levels and your everything increase. So
You might paper from last time I took that.
the placement test?
Yeah.
No, I didn't look at it specifically. I can. I mean, I guess I looked at it a little bit today to make the test tickets, but okay.
You wanna look at it and keep that and get that back. Different days of review.
Oh, well, I can definitely look on it. I can pull up the report anytime I need to.
That's it.
So I don't need your copy, but, yeah, that's usually how we follow up. So once you finish your progress test, we'll pull up the new report and contrast the two and hopefully see some improvements. That's always our goal. So there won't be anything specific to like social studies or science, like we're doing in GED stuff, but cool. And the answers are all in the back and they have explanations too. Uh-oh, sorry, I didn't say anything. I know nothing.
I do my best to stay in the front of the book.
Well, I had to learn the hard way because I kept forgetting to like include the answers because I would be so arrogant. I'd be like, I know, we'll figure out the answers. I'm the teacher, I'm smart. And then, like I didn't get stumped by questions or be like, I don't know. I always just blame the writer of the question. Like, who wrote this awful question?
That wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
But yeah. Well, thank you. I'll see you. I'll be at class and then I will be online.
Yeah, and I definitely won't forget, I promise.
And I'm gonna be doing it in B4 or whatever.
Morning, no. So when you come in the morning, do you know where my desk is, back by Daniel's? Yeah. And we'll just go in the little testing room that's over by my, on the other side of the wall from my desk. What's up? Oh, I will sign you guys in tonight if that's okay. Cause I didn't get my act together. Okay, well, we can sign in twice tomorrow if that's better.
Now you're good.